RuneScape once held an event that let players save real endangered animals with virtual money. It sounds like a joke, but the player base and Jagex raised over $100,000 for charity in the process. But soon after, Jagex banned the event from ever happening again. Why did something so bizarre yet so successful happen in the first place? And why will Jagex never allow it to return? Our story begins much further back than you might expect. In late 2006, Ian Gower, one of the founders of RuneScape, is working at Jagex as an intern. That doesn't sound like the career path of someone that helped create RuneScape, so here's what happened. When Andrew, Paul, and Ian Gower began work on RuneScape all the way back in 2001, Ian still had a lot of school left. While RuneScape quickly became a full-time job for Andrew and Paul, Ian could only help out on evenings, weekends, and holidays. By 2006, he was in university, and during his winter holiday would take an internship position at Jagex. But he wasn't there just to coast by at his brother's company. As his internship project, he would be given a monumental task: creating RuneScape's next skill. He was given this document asking him to create a sort of survival or foraging skill. Jagex developers wanted it to include things like finding food and herbs while foraging, randomly finding more resources as your level increased, and also the ability to build traps to catch things in. In the end, Ian took these ideas and made a prototype of two skills: foraging and trapping. During internal testing, trapping was found to be much more popular, so that would be the skill that Ian would go on to develop. Trapping would later be renamed to Hunter, a skill all about tracking, trapping, and catching creatures for XP and resources. Now, those of you experienced with Hunter might have noticed that most of the creatures you hunt don't actually exist. They're either fictional like herbivores and kebits, or breeds of real animals that aren't real, like moonlight antelopes and pyre foxes. But things were almost very different. Thanks to the work of the RuneScape Archive project, it has recently been discovered that the Hunter skill was originally going to include many real-life creatures. The Larupia was supposed to be a jaguar, the Grak was going to be a leopard, and the Kayat was going to be a tiger. Not only were you going to be able to hunt these animals, you could mount their heads on the walls of your player-owned house and make clothing out of their pelts. It's not known why they were all replaced by fictional creatures, but my guess is that at the time, and still today, these animals were either endangered or incredibly close to it. Having your character spend hundreds of hours catching and killing an endangered species would be a pretty bad look, especially if they one day actually went extinct in real life. Regardless of the cause, the idea of hunting these big cats was quietly scrapped. They were replaced with fictional creatures, and for nearly a decade, it seemed like RuneScape had moved on. But 9 years later, these same animals would return. But this time, players weren't hunting them, they were saving them, both in-game and in real life, but with virtual money. You'll soon understand why Jagex won't allow this event to ever happen again. Now, as RuneScape players, we spend a lot of time on long AFK grinds that don't require much focus. You could watch a movie on the side, play another game, or even watch a YouTube video like this one. But why not use that time to learn a skill that could change your life? Today's sponsor, Boot.dev, teaches you back-end web development from start to finish in Python, SQL, and Go, all wrapped in a fun RPG-style experience. You'll level up, earn achievements, and complete quests while building real projects. And if you get stuck, Boots, your bear wizard tutor, knows exactly where you are in the course and guides you back on track without just giving away answers. Programmers often have the option to work remotely and have amazing earning potential. According to Stack Overflow, the median salary for backend developers in the US in 2024 was over $100,000. With a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy, you have nothing to lose. So go to Boot.dev and use my code Colonello to get 25% off your entire first year on the annual plan. In July of 2015, Jagex announced that they would be partnering with the WWF. sorry, not that one. This one, the World Wildlife Fund. In an attempt to raise awareness for endangered and vulnerable big cats, Jagex would be launching WWF-themed events in both RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape. Now, Jagex had run charity events in both games before, but nothing quite like these ones. Let's start with RuneScape 3's version, but with a bit of important context first. In early 2015, a temporary live stream event called The Drop was run in RuneScape. In the event, players would stand on these suspended platforms and answer RuneScape-related questions. Players who answered incorrectly would be dropped out of the minigame and disqualified. Whoever made it to the end would be rewarded with a prize. On the day of the live stream, 2 rounds of The Drop were run. In the first round, the winner would receive Gold Premier Club membership, or a bond if they already had it. In the second round, each player had to pay a buy-in of 1 million gold, but in turn, the winner would receive 500 million gold. Instead of players being eliminated by dropping off the platforms, it was Jagex's servers that got eliminated first. Due to server lag, a significant number of competitors were disconnected from the game and thus disqualified. This led to a huge riot in World 66 Falador, and players who bought into the second round would receive a refund of their buy-in at a later date. Despite its rocky beginnings, Jagex didn't want to give up on the drop. So when the WWF approached them with interest in a partnership, Jagex knew they could make use of it, with some changes of course. On July 20th, they would launch The Drop Big Cats Edition, a version of The Drop that instead of being a one-time live stream event, would be available for anyone to play every 30 minutes, at the hour, and at half past. Answering questions correctly would earn you points, which could then be spent on the jaguar and tiger cub pets, as well as titles. The event shop also contained a lion cub and snow leopard cub pet, but they couldn't be earned with points. They could only be obtained in a much more controversial way, but I need to explain old school's version of the event before we dive into that. When it launched, you could speak to the WWF conservationist at the Grand Exchange and be teleported to the World Wildlife Fund conservation area. Here you would complete a variety of tasks to help save virtual big cats. 3 dwarfs want to cut down a forest, which would destroy the nearby tiger's habitat. So instead you mine some rocks and construct a stone bridge. After doing so, you could claim a tiger toy. The snow leopard population keeps breaking into this sheep pen, so you need to chop down some nearby oak trees to repair it. Why the dwarfs didn't just walk the short distance to use these trees, I suppose we'll never know. And how does cutting the snow leopards off from their only food source help them? Maybe it protects them from angry farmers who are nowhere to be found. Anyway, after doing this, you'd be able to claim a snow leopard toy. Next, you'd need to help the lions by harvesting grass seeds and growing them here. After they've all grown, does and lions will spawn in the area. Then you could claim a lion toy. Finally, you'd have to save the Amur leopards, which was basically the same concept as the lion event, just with evergreen trees instead of grass. And just like the other ones, after completing it, you could claim an Amur leopard toy. All of the toys didn't really do much. They were more or less just reskins of toy horses, all the way down to their animations, but they're cute and were well worth the small time investment. Now, saving virtual animals is great and all. It raises awareness for the real animals who are actually in danger, but Jagex wanted to allow players to do more. During this event, players could donate bonds to the in-game WWF conservationist. In RuneScape 3's version of the event, you could also donate bonds, or spend them in the event's shop to purchase the lion and snow leopard cub pets. It wasn't just players donating bonds either. Jagex also did a bot-busting livestream in RuneScape 3. Normally, JMods would jump between worlds on stream, hunt down obvious bots, and ban them live for the whole community to see. But for this event, they added a twist. All the gold and items seized from banned accounts would be converted into bonds, and those bonds would also be donated. It was part entertainment, part public shaming, and part charity drive. But what would donating or spending bonds on this event actually do? Why was it so controversial? It wasn't just another in-game currency sink. They were about to cross the line between RuneScape's virtual economy and the real world. In RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape, bonds are an in-game item you can buy with real money. They can be redeemed for membership, character name changes, other premium benefits, or, and this is the big one, sold to other players for gold. They essentially act as a one-way bridge between real-world cash and in-game currency, kind of like a legal developer-approved way of buying RuneScape gold without using shady third-party sellers. When you donated a bond to the Conservationist or spent one in the shop, Jagex would donate at least £2.85 of that bond to the WWF. Pretty awesome, right? You can now use virtual gold to help make a difference in the real world. Slight issue. At the time, bonds cost £3.59. There were a lot of angry players out there wondering where that missing 74 pence was going. A month before the event launched, Jagex did say they would be, quote, passing all money raised from your bond donations directly to the WWF, but on the day the event launched, they clarified in each game's respective news post that the donation amount would be at least $2.85 per bond, not the full purchase price of $3.59. Some players felt that Jagex was using charity as a way to try and make money, especially when it came to the limited time Jaguar and Tiger Cub pets, which could only be purchased with bonds. A few players also grumbled that the event wasn't polled first, but it was a drop in the bucket compared to everything else. Personally, I think this controversy was pretty overblown. If you consider the amount of developer time that was put into making the events for both games, promoting them, filming the behind the scenes videos, the donations from the bot busting stream, and so on, I seriously doubt Jagex made any money off this event. If anything, they lost money. Transaction fees alone could eat up a significant portion of that missing 74 pence. There's plenty of things throughout history to criticize Jagex for, but I feel that this is not one of them. Outside of the complaints, it was a pretty well-received event. By the time it ended, Jagex managed to raise over £95,000 for the WWF, a massive success. The WWF was so grateful that they even sent over this massive panda plush, who the Jagex team would lovingly name Mod Panda. Mod Panda even has a Twitter account, but he hasn't been active since 2016, so he probably got fired. But if this event was such a huge success, why hasn't it ever been run again? Actually, why have in-game charity events disappeared from RuneScape entirely? Let's very briefly discuss the Well of Goodwill. It was another charity event where for every 1,000,000 coins players donated to the well, Jagex would donate $1 to charity. You could also donate items such as bonds, which were counted for their value in gold coins. In 2019, a player was suggesting that the Well of Goodwill be reopened for another charity event, and Modash replied by saying, "We'd not be able to do the Well of Goodwill again, since we were asked to stop equating in-game items to real-world value like that." But why would that be an issue? Now, this is just me speculating, but it's likely due to United Kingdom laws. Buying a bond and converting it to RuneScape Gold is a one-way street. There's no official Jagex-sanctioned way to turn that gold back into cash. Events like the Well of Goodwill and WWF Charity Drive blurred that line, since players could effectively turn in-game gold into real-world donations. This potentially opened up a legal gray area, where RuneScape's currency could be interpreted as having a real-world cash value. And once a game's currency crosses that threshold, it raises regulatory questions around gambling and financial law, the kind of risk most companies would want to avoid. Jumping forward to today, most of the big cats this event revolved around are still in serious trouble. Tigers, leopards, and lions continue to face threats from habitat loss, poaching, and declining prey populations. I'm not partnered with them in any way, but if you want to help protect these animals in the real world, I've left a link to the WWF donation page in the description below. Now, check out the video on the right about the Goblin High Priest raids. Almost nobody remembers that event, but it left behind problems Jagex spent years trying to fix.